Rob Dauster, the field of 68, college basketball, and I mean there's something they're talking about. It could be a big win, a big loss. And of course this is their feeding frenzy, which actually happens the day the college basketball starts. And even before that, Rob joins us, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, and David Smoke on 365 Sports. So, Rob, I was going to put this out there. You know, Kansas is like the ultimate blue blood. I know Kentucky is in that conversation, or North Carolina. And they were playing last night against West Virginia, and I realized they won a national title last year. It was 14 years prior to that, 20 years before that one, 36 years before that one. It's hard, right? It's hard to be a blue blood, even though Kansas has thought of that.
Yeah, you know, the thing about winning a national title is that you got to win 6 games in March against some of the best competition. You're never determining necessarily who the best team is. I've always said this. The NCAA tournament is the worst way to determine the best team in a sport and the best way to determine a champion, because anybody could win it. We've seen that over the years. Like, UConn had no reason to be able to win the last 12 NCAA tournaments, and they did, right? That's the fun part. That's what makes the sport so much fun and so entertaining. But I think, look, with this Kansas team this year, I really do think that they have as good of a chance as anybody to win a title and to repeat for the first time since Florida in 2007. You know, I think Bill Self, he's not getting enough credit this year for the job that he's done with what they lost last season, with what they brought back. He figured out a way to make KJ Adams be one of the better centers at 6'6" in the Big 12, the best conference in college basketball. You know, he's got DeJuan Harris playing above his head. It's so much fun to watch his team develop and grow throughout it. Well, it is for us on the outside. I can't imagine that it is for people that have to go against them, night in and night out in that conference. But he is so good at what he does. It makes me wish I was that good at my job.
Rob, it is kind of fascinating. He's also done this without any kind of real sixth man or presence on the bench when it comes to if someone in the starting five is cold. For Kansas, it's just they're going to be cold because you're not really going to get many points in a spot off the bench just to get a guy out of a funk.
Yeah, you basically got to get it with your five, right? You're kind of – their benches, we're going to steal minutes here and we're going to steal minutes there. We're going to try to make sure that these guys have their legs at the end of the game. But you're not bringing someone in to be like an impact sub. It's kind of what it is this year for Kansas. And frankly, I think we see that with a lot of teams across the country, right? There's a lot of really good teams that basically have five guys. And to me, that has been one of the most impactful things about the portal is it's very difficult to put together a roster where you have like 9 or 10 guys that are all good enough to contribute at the level that you expect with teams like this. Because if you're going to be the 8th guy on a team, but you're good enough to be a starter for maybe a team that's a little bit lower in the pecking order, you're probably going to leave and go be eligible right away and go play 35 minutes somewhere, right? So I think, to me, that's been one of the bigger most surprising parts about the way that this has kind of developed and the way that the transfer portal has kind of progressed college basketball in 2023.
Rob, tonight a potentially huge game, a very interesting game with Texas and TCU. And, of course, if Texas can get the win, that makes that game on Saturday that much more massive between the Longhorns and the Jayhawks. Your thoughts on how Rodney Terry navigated the Chris Beard situation and has gotten Texas here close to the finish line where they are and have a shot at a Big 12 regular season championship?
Yeah, I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is to do what Rodney Terry has done this year. You're coming in, you're taking over a program that you didn't necessarily build. Now, he was involved in the recruitment and involved in adding those guys. But those guys came into that program to play for Chris Beard. They came into that program because they believed in the vision that Chris Beard sold them. And out of nowhere, like overnight, all of a sudden that's gone. And Chris Beard is no longer the guy running the show there. And to be able to step in and not lose a step, right? This is they were a top 10 team when Chris got suspended. And they're a top 10 team right now. It's been unbelievable what he's done, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I hope they give him a shot at the job. You know, I don't know if you necessarily want to invest. I don't think he's proven himself to the point that you would invest, I don't know, like the same salary that you would have paid Chris Beard, because I think Chris Beard had a little bit of a better track record. But I hope Rodney Terry gets it, and I would love to see him prove everybody, all the doubters, including myself, wrong. You know, I think he's earned that opportunity. If you finish second in a league as good as this Big 12 is, you deserve to have at least a shot. You know, give him something.
Rob, do you feel like Chris Beard will be a head coach by the end of the season or by the start of next season?
Man, it kind of feels like it's leaning that direction, right? It's going to require a school that can overlook some of the things that have gone on with him and some of the accusations that, frankly, are still going to be hanging over his head. But in college basketball in 2023, I would not be surprised to see him ending up having a job somewhere. My biggest thing is, like, is he going to get another high major job? Like, is Ole Miss going to come call him? That's one of the places that has kind of seemed like a place that has been connected with him. Or is it something like, he's got to start at like a UT Arlington or something at more at that level? And not to say that like things are going to change at UT Arlington. I'm just throwing something out, like more of a mid-major, low-major kind of a program. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with him. I do think that it was very beneficial that the charges were eventually dropped, because now there's no more legal proceedings. You're just going to have to deal with the pushback that you get from hiring him, more or less. And if I'm the PR firm advising whoever's going to hire him, I would not be surprised if, like, in the middle of the national title game, we get this release and this news that Chris Beard has been hired. Try to bury it as much as possible. Like that just seems to be the way these things go. I don't know if I love it, but it seems like that's where we're trending.
Rob, what do you think about what Baylor has done this year? They've been a little bit up and down. They've had 2 losing streaks essentially in this season, a 3-game and a 2-game skid. But is this a team that fully healthy can make a run, or are they too weak on defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to depend on how consistent they are on that end of the floor. And I think getting Chandler Chacho back is just – it's so important, because he's the guy that – he doesn't quite have the same burst, and he's probably not going to be blocking shots at the same level. And he's definitely not the same guy that's going to be soaring over 17 defenders and throwing down lobs, right? But it's the presence, it's the leadership, it's the voice at the back. Like, watch him when they play. He's the guy that's always yelling at everybody, that's always talking, that's always barking out orders. It's always saying, hey, switch here, screen here, do this, that, rotate, you got to get over there, right? Like, it's just his presence on the court helps. And to be frank, like, you need guys that can just get in the way. There's 2 ways that you can be a rim protector, right? One of them is to block shots. The other one is to be the guy that takes 100 charges and just gets in the way when people are driving to the basket. And you can do that if you're not really athletic. There's lots of guys that have made Brad Davidson had a 27-year college basketball career made out of nothing but taking charges. So there's ways that you can kind of find a way to get it done. But look, when it comes to JTT, that's one of the best stories in college basketball, because what that dude overcame, I don't know how much the public really knows about how bad that injury was, but I'm so happy for him. He's a great ambassador for the sport. He's a great human being, and it's just nice to see him, on the court smiling again, banging threes. How about that?
Yeah,
JTT, 3-point shooter.
Well, hello, Jonathan, and he hits a 3 really quickly. Hits a couple of them in that game. One other thing about him, he's playing well. It's not just he's coming back and it's a great story. He actually is impacting the team. His leadership has always been unquestioned, but also he's actually not at that level where he was, but he's playing well to help them. And they needed that inside presence.
Yep, absolutely they did. That was the key. And I think the other thing, he's not going to be the vertical spacer, right? He's not going to be the guy catching lobs, but it's just as effective if you can set a screen and pop. Like, the defense still has to get engaged. You still create that space. Maybe the way that they do it is a little bit different, but he's still able to be a picking, a ball screen threat, and that's what you need when you got Adam Flagler and L.J. Cryer and Keontae George and even Dale Bonner and Langston Love. When you have those guards, you just need a guy that you can set a screen and have defenses have to pay attention to, and that's what Jonathan Chacho is. And it's great to see him play. And I'll tell you what, he's going to get a lot of open threes with those 3 guards coming off a ball screen, because every defense is going to have to pay attention to it.
All right, we had a question about this, and this there's of the major conferences in college basketball. We had a question on our chat. Name the team that you would pick that would represent them if they were to get to the Final Four. In the Big Ten, who would that be in your opinion?
Man, I would have said Indiana until last night. I just think the combination of Trace Jackson Davis's presence and how good their guards can be when they're right. Now, they have these games that they throw up that are just complete stinkers that kind of surprise you with the effort level. But I still think at their peak, Indiana is the best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and Iowa hammered them last night. I saw that as well. All right. Yeah, smoked them. Alabama is going about their business. It's been a rough run, as you can imagine, because of the story involving the former player in Miles and then Brandon Miller and his at least part of that story. They have A&M, I think, on Saturday to close out the regular season. Is it A&M Alabama and or somebody else in the SEC?
Yeah, I think it's Alabama. When Alabama is right, they are, to me, the most dangerous team in college basketball. The big question I have is, Brandon Miller is, 20 years old? He hasn't spoken to the media yet since all of this stuff happened, and now it's going to be the focal point of every single press conference you do at the SEC tournament and at the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the NCAA tournament, when you go to these games, they put you up they put you up there, they put you at the table, they put the microphone in front of you, they got 20 cameras on you, and it's going to be a question that gets asked of him, of Nate Oates, of every single player on that team. So how they can kind of compartmentalize that, it's hard. And I'll be honest, man, it feels weird. It's so uncomfortable saying, they're going to have to distract themselves from the fact that, there was this death of a 23-year-old woman that involved players on this. It's such an uncomfortable thing to be, a situation to be in. And if we're being frank, I think that the way that Alabama handled it, from a punishment perspective, I don't have a real issue with, but from a PR perspective, I think they kind of hung out Brandon Miller and, to a point, Nate Oates just kind of hung him out to dry. It's not the way that I would handle it if I was in that situation.
I asked Seth Greenberg of ESPN Game Day, College Game Day, that same question yesterday, and he had almost the exact answer, Rob, as you did. It's almost like uncomfortable to discuss it because of of what happened with the story. Okay, the Big 12, Kansas has separated themselves. UT still has a chance to get a piece of it. Obviously, Baylor, Kansas State, UT. Is it Kansas right now that's kind of separated themselves as the pick in the Big 10 or Big 12?
Yeah, I think so, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to hitch my wagon to Bill Self and see what happens, right? But I will say this about Baylor. At the end of the day, when you get into March to be able to make a run, you need to have great guard play. Not good guard play. You need to have great guard play. And there's no team in college basketball that has better guard play than Baylor. And, oh, by the way, they happen to have a dude on the sideline that all of 24 months ago was cutting down the nets, winning a national title himself. So I think Kansas is probably the team that I would pick just because I think they're a little bit better and a little bit more well-rounded. But Baylor is going to be dangerous. If you're a number one seed, right, and you see Baylor as the 2 seed in your region, I don't think that you're sitting there being like, all right, we do a team that can't really guard anybody. You're sitting there saying, what are we going to do against Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer and Keontae George?
Pac-12 has UCLA and Arizona.
Give me UCLA. I think that they are they're a top 4 team in America right now. I think they're going to end up jumping over Purdue for a 1 seed when things are all said and done. They got a veteran point guard. They got a stud in Jaime Jaquez. Their center, I don't know if you've seen this kid play yet, Adem Bona, but he looks like a young Amari Stoudemire with how athletic and how explosive he is. He had a game-winning block the other day where he threw a layup almost back to half court. He's an absolute freak and an anchor and exactly the kind of guy that you would expect to be a starting center for a Mick Cronin team. They're a fun team to watch. They're really good.
Among these teams that are, and again, college basketball, Power 5 or whatever you want to call them, mid-majors, but Houston, Marquette, or Gonzaga?
ACC.
Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My God, I went right over one of the finalists, of course, with North Carolina. Your thoughts about the ACC? Sorry about that.
We don't need to have a conversation about the ACC if we're talking about Final Fours this year.
Easy enough.
Yeah. Miami to me is it's kind of, the B+ version of Baylor. Isaiah Wong is a stud. They got Nigel Pack, the kid from Kansas State. They got a dude named Jordan Miller who might be the most underrated player in the conference. And Jim Larinaga, he's another guy that just finds a way to get it done in March. They also don't guard anybody. So that's a little bit of a problem. But I was much more in on them before they blew a 25-point lead, the biggest blown lead in the history of the ACC on Saturday to Florida State of all teams.
You know it.
Yep, we got a Seminole. We got
Go
a
Noles.
So among these schools, Houston will be a part of the Big 12. Marquette, Gonzaga. If you had to put them in order of maybe getting or could get to a Final Four, how would you put them in order?
I'm gonna put Houston at number one. Like they're so good, they're so tough, they know what they're gonna do, they know their role. I don't know if they quite have the ceiling of some of these other really good teams around college basketball, but they're just so good at what they do that you have to be great on your day to be able to beat them. And there's not very many teams in college basketball that can do that. I would put Marquette second. I love the way they can kind of space the floor, and I do think, neither of them or Gonzaga are going to be great metrically when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. But Marquette at least has the ability to switch everything and force turnovers, so they can go on runs, right? They can go on possessions where they force 3 straight turnovers and get layups out of it. And that ability to turn defense into offense, while they're not going to be great defensively, I do think that that's something that's going to matter when you get to March, right? There's going to be times when a team's got you scouted, they got you figured out, and you got to find a way to get buckets without being able to run your offense and run your stuff. And their ability to force turnovers and get layups out of it is something that I think will help them.
Rob, when it comes to Houston, would their biggest thing is would catch them up is a game where they score 56 points and run up against a team that has just a fill it up scorer that can make a key shot at the end of a game and kind of undo what would probably be a great defensive game otherwise?
I think to be able to beat Houston, you got to match them like size for size, pound for pound, athlete for athlete. So I think that some of these teams out there, like maybe like in Arizona, I think would give them a lot of trouble because you got just as many big, physical, athletic dudes on Arizona as you do on Houston. I think teams like that, like a Texas, right? You got a lot of Texas got a bunch of guys that are like 23 and 24 years old, right? I think that's the kind of team that can end up giving Houston some trouble. I think that if you got to match them strength for strength, because if you can't keep them off the offensive glass, if you can't run your offense against them, they're going to be able to force turnovers against you. Like they're so good at doing what they do. The way that one coach phrased it to me is they control the controllables, right? You're always going to get 110% effort, right? You never question that. You're always going to get a team that gets up in you and really, really, really guards you. And you're always going to get a team that pounds the glass. Like, I pound the 12-ounce Bud Light once it hits 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. So they control the controllables, and you got to be able to beat them at their games to be able to beat them, because I don't think you can do it otherwise.
All right, Rob, man, we appreciate it. What you guys do, we've appreciated all you. Okay, your daughter's a gymnast, correct?
Yeah, she is. She's 4 years old. She's trying to be a gymnast.
Well, she's Nadia Comaneci or Mary Lou Retton, whoever it might be. Simone Biles, is that right? That is awesome.
Yeah. Wow, there you go.
That is a unique. It's a great sport. Obviously, the Olympics, people love that, along with figure skating. What was your reaction when she wanted to get into gymnastics?
I was like, good. Let's burn off some of this energy. Let's find a way to get you tired so you're going to sleep at night.
Yeah. I love it. All right,
I would look, if you go pick her up and she runs to see you, be like, no, go back. Do a couple more
tumbles.
If
she does a somersault over the car. Yeah.
We're staying. We're going for class number 2. Here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Hey, Rob, thank you as always. Thanks for your time. They do a great job. It is a fantastic basketball podcast with Terrence, also Jeff Goodman, and also, of course, Rob Dauster with us on 365 Sports. The 4 o'clock hour